the Leadership Series Class of 2026. Wednesday, May 20th.
All right, so we have a lot to go over today because we are going to dive deep into the disability rights history. And this is actually probably one of the best classes. We're going to be watching video a lot of the time. It's a long video. So we should have had you bring your popcorn.
There are 3 videos.
3 videos. So a lot of video content today. So just hang in there. Make sure you stay muted during the videos. And then we're going to talk about it after. So that's going to be our icebreaker. Will come after the videos. Okay. So by a show of hands, how many of you had a chance to go to the election and voting website on the SOS website? Look at that. Yay! Did you find that it was easy and informative? Give a thumbs up. Yes. Or raise a hand or whatever. Shout. Yeah. You thought it was good? Good. I think it's probably one of the best voting websites out of all the states. That's my personal opinion. Rhode Island really knocked it out of the park with that one. So I'm glad you guys saw it. We do have an announcement before we get started. We want you to mark your calendars because we have a new date and time for our State House tour. I'm going to email this to you too. It's going to be on Wednesday, June 17th. We need to be at the State House in that like front lobby area at 9:45 a.m. And then we're going to do a mock session first. So we're going to like pretend voting. So we're going to do that mock session first. And then we're going to take a walk around the State House and look at different things and tour. And then at 11 o'clock, we're going to have pizza on the 3rd floor. So the State House provides us with pizza. And then we should be done between 11:30 and noon, somewhere around there. Does that sound good? And it's on a Wednesday, so everybody should be able to make it.
Yeah. Sounds good to me. I'll make it then, Deb. I'll make it then. Okay, Michelle?
That's awesome.
And Keith and Michelle set it up, so thank you, Keith and Michelle. Yay.
Yay, Keith.
Yay,
so we'll send out lots of information on that about where to park and that kind of stuff. But remember, just
wait, Alex, just wait till she's done and then you can put your hand up.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm done, Alex. Go ahead.
Do we have to wear like any elegant like tuxes and dresses for like
no comfortable walking shoes because it's a lot of walking around the State House.
A lot of walking.
It's usually very warm, so just wear something cool but decent, like no t-shirts with pictures on it and stuff.
Just remember the stuff we said about leaders at the beginning, and you can go on the website and see what to do and not to do. And you don't want to wear shirts with messages on it and ripped and stuff. No. You want to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Don't wear fancy shoes because your feet will hurt. No fancy shoes.
No fancy shoes.
No,
I can because I'm not walking.
That's right. Yeah. There you go.
No fancy shoes, Dave.
So we're really excited for this. All right.
All right.
That's it for the announcements.
Okay.
And graduation's coming up. We're going to send you an invitation that you can send out to family and friends and let us know how many you're expecting so we can have enough food.
We have plenty of time before.
We do. Just putting the thing in your head now. These things are coming up in like a month, which is crazy.
Before you know it'll be here like that.
Okay, we're going to talk about disability rights, and we have a slideshow for it. And like Michelle said, there's videos in it, and just remember to stay on mute while it's playing because, like, Alex is going to read the slides come up, and Alex is going to read the title and the description for us, and then we're just going to talk about them, and we're not going to go so fast that people can't follow it, but we're going to move at a good clip so we get through all of it because we lost a class going to the State House, and we want to make sure because all of this leads up to you and why you have support plans, why there's conflict-free case management, why there's this thing called person-centered planning, it all, and disability rights and the division of developmental disabilities, it's all because of the beginning of the disability rights movement that paved the way. So we're going to look at how things started. And here it comes. Ooh, exciting. I love this stuff. Can you read that one for us, Alex? Alex Hubbard, not to be confused with Alex Manlula.
Disability History Highlights, Part 2, The Beginning of the Disability Rights Movement, created by Advocates in Action, Rhode Island. Equality, just like everyone else. First image shows a group of people with and without disabilities standing balanced on a scale to represent equality. And the second image shows the American flag with fireworks and the word, "You've got that right."
Remember a couple of classes ago, we started to talk about disability rights, and the biggest message we said then was it's to make people have the same, to level the playing field, to keep things the same for everybody, not special, not different, right? So this is just to remind you that that's what this is about. And then today we're going to talk about what does that mean? How did that happen? Because the idea is to level the playing field, and a lot of different things have happened to make it level. But let's look at like going back a little bit of like when did that happen to begin? You want to say something else about it too, Dee?
No. I think you covered it.
Okay. All right. So here comes our first little video. And this is 9 minutes, okay? So I'm just going to put it up, and it just says on the top, it says disabilities doesn't mean special, because we talked about like it doesn't make you any different. The right, you're not looking for special rights or special treatment. You're just looking for equality. And so here I'm going to put it up, and we can watch this video. It's a really powerful video. It's one of our favorites.
You can watch this video on our class page.
All right. Now we want to stay on
that,
track.
Deb.
People have to share a little bit about that. That's okay. When you do that, Tyler, you don't have to tell us and apologize, okay? It's fine. It's not you. It's your technology. Don't worry about it. We know you're dedicated. It's good. He was here 15 minutes early, you guys. He's got it.
Yes, you was.
Don't worry about it, Tyler.
Yeah.
It's
Don't
the internet,
worry.
not you. Yeah. So anybody want to share briefly any thoughts, reactions to that? Not us mentors, because we've seen it before. Not us peer people, but like anybody in the class. What do you think? What do you think about that? You must have some thoughts. Molly does. Go, Molly.
So that's how I try to live my life on a daily basis. Just to let people know that it's normal to see people with disabilities in restaurants. It's normal to see people with disabilities out at clubs. It's normal because we shouldn't. Well, society shouldn't put a label that we're not allowed in certain places.
Yes. That is, and the other part of it is, it also, you shouldn't think like, oh, you're so special, Molly. Oh, aren't you so special and wonderful, without getting to know anything about you, because you might be a jerk. You're not. You're a really awesome person. But people will just, that's the point there, is like, that people think because you have a disability label. Oh, like the number of times Dee has been patted on the head over the years.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's obnoxious.
And I've been kicked on the street on the cheek by strangers. It's like, dude, like back up, like we're no, like I tell people, don't look at the wheelchair, look at the person inside the wheelchair.
Yep, exactly. And that's what disability laws are meant to do. Alex M, we know. Alex, not to be confused, you, Alex M.
For me, I want to point out that like, I think like I want to add like with Molly's answer and explanation that like I think people who are not disabled, who are like normal groups of people who hang out and stuff like that, and like they should just welcome like a person with like mild or like like a genetic neurological disorders in their group, no matter if they seem like they talk like unusual, or they have like unusual body features, or like they act differently, and like it's just annoying that like there are some groups of people that think that people with like disabled disorders and stuff like that, like or like like people that they don't enjoy allowing in because they either look like they're like creatures from outer space, or they just like sound like they have like the cat caught your tongue syndrome.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing. I saw Dee flinch, so I'm just going to say it for both of us, that one of the things that we try to avoid is saying normal groups of people, because we're all people, and this normal thing, that's what a setting on the clothes dryer is what normal is, which I never use because mine never works and clothes don't dry. But I know what you're saying, Alex, and I appreciate that. And again, that's what disability laws are meant to do, is just to level it so that it's like you don't treat someone different because they walk different or talk different or look different or think, anything. We're all the same. Somebody else, Alex, we're going to take turns because we could all talk about this one forever. We have graduate academy classes, and one is about disability rights. So if you want to join that one, there's a lot more time for more conversation, but we want to get to the place where we talk about your plans and you and stuff. So anybody else, Dee wanted to say stuff, Dee?
I just wanted to give you a new example of it. Because it just happened. My mother had surgery, as some of you know, and I was waiting in the hallway to get something to eat, and I was just waiting in the hallway, and this woman comes up to me. Now again, this is like I'm just waiting in the hallway, and she's like, "Do you mind? Hi, do you mind if I pray with you?" And I'm all for prayer. I really am all for prayer, but the reason why she said that was because it was a person in a wheelchair sitting in the hallway. And so she was like, "Are you in any pain or anything?" And I was like, "No."
If you stop talking, I won't be.
But it just, well-meaning people, but I just don't think I would have had the same reaction had I been standing and waiting,
And I think everybody has stories like, there's lots of stories like that. And the big point about it is, again, that like the laws we're going to talk about in disability rights and the history of it all is meant to make that stuff not happen. And the things that have been passed and the laws we're going to talk about, the stuff still happens, but it's not legal. It's not okay. And so the more you know about it, the more you can stop and say, wait a minute. Did anybody else say anything yet? Want to say anything about that? All right. So we're going to go on to something else that's a big deal. Alex, you ready to
Yes. Disability rights are civil rights. The image on this slide is a newspaper clipping with the headline, "Court Bans Segregation in Public School Cases."
So this goes back. This is important to understand this, even though why are we talking about this when we're talking about disability rights? Because like it says, disability rights are civil rights, and civil rights, the bigger general thing about civil rights are they're meant to just make sure that everybody, whether they look different, they move different, they have different beliefs, they have different sexual identity, everybody is treated the same. That's what civil rights are. And then in our country, there was something called the Civil Rights Movement with a capital S and a capital M, like civil arts, capitals, the letters. It's a real thing. Civil Rights Movement. And it really started, the big thing that kicked it off was this Supreme Court case in 1954 called Brown versus the Topeka Board of Education. Just raise your hand if you've heard of that. If you heard Tammy's hand, come on, you've heard it. That is a huge thing. Even though it's a people that African Americans, people with different colored skin, it applies to us because it made the whole thing a big deal because it came out and it said, court bans segregation in public school cases. So segregation is where you take people that look different and you separate, you put them somewhere else. And before that, there was this other court case, not to give you too much blah, 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 but there was this other court case before that called Plessy versus Ferguson, where they said, sure, it's okay if you separate kids that look different and you put them in a separate school with a separate water bubblers and all that stuff. You can do that because it's okay, because as long as they're equal, as long as you give them both access to the same stuff, that's okay. And what Brown versus Topeka Education said was, no, it's not, because it's never, ever good. Segregation, separate, is never equal, just because by the very fact that you separate people. And that started off with the civil rights movement that was led by African Americans, but it was the basis for so many other civil rights movements, like including the disability rights movement. Because if you think about it, people with disabilities, like, what do we used to do? We used to stick them in institutions. And even though they said they had schools there, which they were not schools, we used to put people away and say, well, we're providing for them, so it's okay. And that was the basis of this, of of the civil rights movement was to come out and say it's not okay, because it's still true. Like, if you remember anything about this, just remember that big important phrase that separate is never equal, because it's never equal. It's never going to be. It was never equal before. And like some people just said, like, you should look at the person. Don't look at anything that's different about them. Don't listen how they talk differently. Don't look at if they move differently, if they look differently. None of that matters, because separate is never equal. And so that's the idea that gets us up to talking about the disability rights movement. So are we ready? Because we have more stuff to talk about with this. Just say yes. All right.
Yes.
Any questions on that so far? Because I want to go so fast. We're not going to go so fast that people don't understand what we're saying. Just so you know, we just want to make sure we get the good stuff. You look, Nathan. You got something, Nathan? Okay. All right. Okay.
The civil rights movement and disability rights. The image on this slide is a photograph of people with disabilities during a disability rights march. The people carrying a sign with a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King that says, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere."
So in the 1960s, especially, the civil rights movement made a lot of progress. And like in 1964, they passed this thing called the Civil Rights Act, which said you can't treat people differently. But if they didn't specifically say people with disabilities, they said people based on race and gender, and I think they said religion. They didn't say people that had disabilities, though, which is important, because people with disabilities were kind of saying, like, you're right. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, and you're pushing forward the rights of other groups, and people with disabilities are still sitting in institutions being treated as second-class citizens, not even as citizens. And so the civil rights movement empowered, meaning it like gave power to it, held up people with disabilities for the disability rights movement. And if you look at some of the protest videos and all the stuff, and we're going to see some, and we're going to hear about this in the video that's going to make Dee cry. Every year she cries. That the people who were part of the civil rights movement and allies, like people that African Americans and white people that were marginalized, they stood shoulder to shoulder with people in the disability rights movement, which was a really big deal, because if they weren't there to do it, it would have been a lot harder, because you need allies. No matter what, allies are people that they're not in the same marginalized group as you, but they're there with you, supporting you and holding your hand and marching with you and standing up for you and helping you stand up for yourself. Not standing up in your place, but helping you do it. That's just basically the idea for that one, that they said, the civil rights movement, it got the disability rights movement going. And, everything happens, and it kind of supports everything else. And as you're going to see, let's see, hang on a minute. So here we go. So I'm just going to tell you that this slide, you don't even have to read this one, Alex. I'm just going to explain to you that this next slide, can you see the screen? This slide is because we have, if you can see my hand still, we have like a little bit of left time to talk about one of the most important things. Everything was important, but disability rights and the laws that got created and how they affect you and lead to things like this, that we're going to spend time talking about this thing called the home and community-based settings or services rule, which they call the final rule, which gives you so much more power than you could ever imagine. Those things all go back to the fact that the disability rights movement, it got it moving. But we don't have enough time to talk about all the things that happened. But we have this cool site. Dee and I have look, this site has existed for years, and they keep adding to it. This site, it says, find out more about disability rights. And then that blue box there says Parallels in Time, a history of developmental disabilities. It was put together by the Minnesota Developmental Developmental Disability Council, big mouthful. That's the logo for them, that middle box there. It says Department of Administration, Governor's Council on Developmental Disabilities in Minnesota. But we still love them because, like Michelle said, the secretary, the voter website is Rhode Island has the best. Minnesota, that nobody has come close. This is the best. Yeah, Dee, go ahead.
Minnesota is unbelievable. So
yeah.
So if you have a chance, go check it out.
You want to go check it out. Like, you don't have to do it. You can just say there's so much there that you won't. And just to let you know, the website for that is, if you type in on your web browser, you just have to type in mn.gov/mnddc/parallels. That's the link. You don't even have to put in the www part, because every website starts with www. So that website, which you're going to get the link, it's going to be on the class webpage, so you don't have to worry about it right now. And you can go to that site. There'll be a little button we'll just put there. You can click and go to that site. It has videos. It's easy language. It has like audio files from history of people just talking about things. It has all the leaders of the disability rights movement. There's a Gunnar I can never say his name. Diwab. Gunnar
yeah.
Gunnar Diwab.
Yeah.
His
Yeah.
last name I can never say, but he's a big deal. The Bob Williams, he was like a really huge deal. All these people, Judy Heumann, we're going to talk about her. That's one of our favorite disability rights people. They are all there talking about this stuff. So you can go find out a whole bunch more. But for us, for today, for now, we're going to tell you in the next couple of classes about just a couple of laws. They're called acts, okay? But they're laws about a couple things that were important, like big milestones that stand out, and some Supreme Court cases that also make a huge, big difference. I should have asked if there's any questions. Any questions? All right. So this next one, Alex, can you read the
The Rehabilitation Act of 1973, also called Section 504. The image on this slide is a photograph of people with disabilities protesting in support of Section 504.
So this is the big thing we're going to talk about today. And we're not just going to we're going to show you some really powerful video footage about this. But Section 504, 1973, it's called the Rehabilitation Act, and it has a bunch of sections in it. 504 is the most major one. It's like the first major deal from the federal government to promote the rights of people with disabilities. And there's other parts. There was one in there about if the federal government about hiring people and employment practices. And all of it was to say that you can't discriminate. You can't treat people any differently just because they have a disability. All of that was for that purpose. And there was another part about like information that the government puts out, like electronic information and printed stuff. It all has to be accessible. So like if somebody's blind, they need to make some stuff in Braille. When they do all those videos and when they have people, talking, they have to have a sign language interpreter. All those things saying it has to be equally accessible to people with disabilities. But Section 504 was the biggest, most powerful at the beginning, really, of the whole let's change things, disability rights, because it said any federal money, so there's a federal government and then there's state governments, and federal government is above. So it applies to every state. Everything that gets any kind of federal money, like schools, like roads, like library buildings, anything that gets federal money can't discriminate against people with disabilities. So it has to be accessible, which is huge, you guys. Like before that, like I mentioned, Bob Williams, he had polio and he went through life with an iron lung, like a giant scuba tank, basically, that helped him breathe. And he went to school in California and he couldn't go into the classrooms and stuff. Like there were so many obstacles, but rather than just giving up, he gathered other people, other wheelchair users, other people with disabilities, and got them together to say, hey, this isn't right. And so part of that was the outcome of people protesting and speaking up was this thing called the Rehab Act. And just remember Section 504. Some people call it it is number 504, but it's just kind of commonly known as Section 504. Anybody heard of Section 504? Molly's did. I know she did, but she's like, yeah. It's a huge thing. And it's still there today. They've changed it a couple times over the years. They just kind of have to re-update things if they're acts, if they have like a limited amount of time, they have to re-up them. But it is still in existence today. And so if things are not, for example, accessible, and we're not even talking about the ADA, that comes later. So don't worry, we're going to get to that next time. But the money that is used, any federal money is involved, it has to be accessible. So like people's plans in school, like not their support plan, like it has to be compliant. It has to be that, our board president before, he was born in 1933, there was no ramp on his building and he had cerebral palsy in a massive wheelchair. And he had pictures, right, Dee, of his friends standing in front of the stairs, carrying him up the stairs. That's not acceptable nowadays.
Yeah, the wheelchair, lifting of the wheelchair and his medical stairs, so.
Yeah. Okay, now, Alex, wait, now we're going to raise hands if we have questions. You have to practice that, though, okay? Promise me you're going to practice not raising hands when other people are speaking. Not for us, but when you go other places, too. So go ahead.
I was going to say, are you referring to Franklin D. Roosevelt?
No, I'm referring to our first president. That's a good question. Our president of Advocates in Action. He wasn't actually our first, but our president.
Oh.
But Roosevelt also used a wheelchair. And before all
Sorry.
this, President Roosevelt, he hid it. He was like, but you're right. No, don't be sorry, Ax. I'm so glad you pointed that out. He hid his disability and the fact that he used a wheelchair. And people like, I saw him walking because he had upper body strength, and his two sons like walked with him all the time. At least one of his kids was there with him. So he kind of like dragged himself along with his crutches, but he was paralyzed from the waist down the whole time he was president. And it didn't matter because he was an awesome president. Okay, now we're going to look more at section 504. And first, though, there's a little intermission here because section 504, this law was passed, and it's when something becomes a law, it's also called an act, just so you know. But let's just learn a little bit before we start talking more about 504, about how that happens. And get ready if you're of a certain age or your mother showed this to you or something, because this is a cute little video. And this is from a show called Schoolhouse Rock. Anybody that played 1,000 years ago, I know, and it's still the same exact process. You know, it looks a little, what's what with it, and we'll explain a little more after we watch this, but this is only 3 minutes.
You can watch this video on our class page.
Classic.
I just love that one. The poor little Bill, they're gonna feel bad. I'm like, oh, I might die. That's like the short version. Just so you know, there's a lot more to that involved, and it doesn't always have to start like they started in the House in that one. Then they went to the Senate. Some bills can start in the Senate. The only exception is the Constitution says that bills that have to do with raising money, the House has to start those ones. It's just because the Constitution says it, because Senate gets to vote for presidential appointees, and House has to do the money stuff. But either way, both sides have to ultimately agree. So the House might start their own version of a bill, and the Senate start their own version, and the House starts with H, and the Senate starts with, what do you think the Senate starts with? H and Senate. Yeah, D, just say it. S. When you see bills, you'll see like a little letter in front of them. That's just your little trivia tip for the day. So, but once they are passed in the House and in the Senate, then they come together for the full Congress and they vote on it. And if it passes there, it's still not done. It has to go to the president. And the president, he can sign it and it becomes a bill, or he can do something called a pocket veto, just to confuse you, which means like he doesn't sign it and Congress goes out of session within, I think, 10 days and then it's not signed. Or he can just put a big old ugly veto stamp on it. So once the bill, though, goes to the president and he signs it, it becomes law. If he doesn't sign it, like they said in that silly little video, it can go back. It goes, if they want to take it up again and debate it on it again, and 2/3 of all of Congress votes to pass it, then they override the president's veto, which hardly ever happens because it just takes so long, and it loses its steam by the time it goes there again and again. But with the Rehab Act, I'm going to give you a little sneak preview here that the president who signed it had actually vetoed it twice before he finally signed it. So it rarely happens, but it happened for the Rehab Act. Yay! Any questions so far? Alex?
My 7th grade high school teacher showed me this exact video, and I haven't seen it for like 9 years.
Memories. It brings back memories. Yeah. I was a kid when it first came out, Alex. So yeah, 7th grade high school.
She said the same thing too. It's been
around for a while. So with the Rehab Act, I'm going to show you another slide, and then we're going to watch the video footage, which is just really, really good. So our Alex, can you hit this one? Just read the description and the title, and then Michelle's going to explain this one.
Slide number 9, 1973 to 1978. The image on this slide shows a person with 2 speech bubbles. The first bubble says, wait, 5 years? The second bubble says, why did it take so long?
So Deb was talking about the Rehab Act. Although President Richard Nixon at the time signed the Rehab Act into law in 1973, Section 504 wasn't actually implemented until 1978, which means that even though it became a law in 1973, it took 5 years before they actually started acting on it, which is ridiculous.
Oops. The government signed the regulations to begin enforcing Section 504 in 1977. So there was actually only a 4-year delay, which was still too long. Sorry for any confusion.
And then, like Deb had mentioned, Nixon had already vetoed earlier versions of the bill twice before he finally agreed to sign it. So this had a lot of pushback, this act. Unfortunately, although it was a federal law, it took officials in the Nixon and President Ford administrations years to develop the rules and regulations that were necessary to implement and enforce the Rehab Act, as other interest groups complained about the costs of doing so. It's always about the monies, isn't it? So, so it took a lot to get it going. Just making it a law doesn't make everything magically happen, but it took a long time. So the delay in enforcing the Rehab Act led to one of the most powerful yet little known protests in disability rights history. And I think that's what this next video is going to be. The 1977 sit-ins.
He's already puffing up. It's powerful.
Yeah.
It makes you like it. We all actually, all of us as a is we all get watery eyes watching it, but it's so powerful, and it has a happy ending. I have to tell you. So if you're panicking watching it, it has a happy ending. But it's awful that it had to go to this extent. But so, just so you know, like anytime a law is passed, it's not. I mean, it's law, but you still need rules on how to enforce it and stuff. And so, most laws take at least some time to do it, and they have to put it in the public record. And sometimes they ask people, to give feedback on how to put it into effect and stuff. But 5 years is a little bit ridiculous. So here we go. Here comes the video. So everybody mute yourself and get ready. This one's like 20 or 19 minutes, I think, but it's well worth watching. And the video's a little rough because it's actual live footage from there.
You can watch this video on our class page.
Before we start talking about it, and there's two questions that Dee's already, they're coming up to. The language in that is, I'm sure some of you are thinking that's offensive language. Don't let that stop you. That back then, I'm going to say the R word, the word retarded was not offensive because they used to call people imbeciles and idiots. So they changed it. It was like an improvement to use the word retarded. It's still offensive if you can call somebody a kumquat and mean bad things, and then that's a bad word too. So it's more the attitude of society. We don't like that word, and we try not to use that word. But in that video at that time, people didn't have the same reaction to that word. And the same thing with this thing called people first language, where you don't call people, disabled or handicapped person. You say a person with a disability. Back then, it wasn't, people didn't have that same view on things. So we can't judge from now what they did then with the language. So let's just let that part go. We don't need comments about that because that language is not acceptable now. So we're not using it.
I think it just goes back to the times, right? So
yeah, it was an improvement. The words, calling people using intellectual developmental disability. That's because when they realized the word mental retardation was being so offensive, they changed it to this. So it's just part of society. Don't be offended by that.
I think it's just what they knew at the time. So
yeah. So, but we want to talk about it, and we want to take turns, and everyone give a chance, everyone to say something. And so we're gonna look, like Michelle and I will look for hands, and Dee's gonna, this word facilitate, she's gonna help things move along. We're gonna there's 2 questions that are going up, okay? And she's the queen here. So and Dee, you are, yeah. That woman who was talking and saying, I would appreciate it if you stop shaking your head, you jerk. She didn't say you jerk, but we know she meant that. That's Judy Human, who we love. She passed away a couple of years ago, and it was an awful loss, but she lived a good, healthy, long life. She was married. She was a lawyer. She did all kinds of cool things. And the wheelchair didn't make any difference, because it shouldn't. Okay, here's the first question. I'm just going to put it up so that we can see it. Alex M, not to be confused with Alex H. Will you just read this question for us? This slide, what's it say on that slide?
Sure. Let's talk about the sit-ins. Question 1. Do you think the Rehab Act would have been implemented if people didn't speak up and hold sit-ins?
So what do you think? Do you think it would have happened if people didn't speak up?
Raise your hand, and we're gonna call on you. At least his hand first.
I see Xavier.
Alicia's hand
Xavier,
was up first. I
Molly.
saw
Oh,
Alicia's
okay.
hand.
All right. So Alicia and then Xavier.
Plus, Alicia doesn't answer as much, so we want to get Alicia. Let's go, Alicia.
And Molly. I think Molly, were you raising your
And
hand
Molly.
too?
I mean, it probably would have taken longer to make it nationwide. I mean, that helped it spread across the nation. But even here in Rhode Island, it took the relatives of the people to speak up, and it helped a lot just here in Rhode Island.
Basically, I had a similar answer, but kind of a bit more exaggerating with the voting system. I believe the person who denied it would get voted out, and people who would be voted in would be in favor of it.
You would think so, but 3 presidents, it took up to the 3rd president.
Yeah,
They just didn't really, that's the way it's supposed to work. I agree. That's the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
It's supposed to work that way. And unfortunately, though, back then, I don't think people really understood the significance of it. So I feel like they would have just kept voting it down, you know. So a different time, different era.
Yeah.
Well, they asked if things were, they asked if people had everything they need in the public building. Well, no, because the law wasn't passed yet. So no, people didn't have the things they needed in the public building. They couldn't get into the public building. That's how
That's what you call
dense
ironic.
it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Molly,
I just wanted to piggyback with what Alicia said and you said D and Xavier. I think it would have passed, but it would have taken a lot longer. We needed to show up to let them know how serious we all were as a community.
yeah, you know, I think that it's important, and Alicia, I think it's important for relatives to show up. You know, anybody that can support people, their loved ones, but I also think there's more power in the individual showing up. Because then, you know, people can see it's about me, it's about you, it's about, you know, it affects me differently than it would affect a family member. And so I think we all work together, but I think it's more powerful when the person that it directly affects, it has more power.
There's this at the end of the videos that we make on the class page at the end. Alex Hubbard, you always say the ending is produced by Advocates in Action, and remember nothing
about us without us.
And what's that mean?
It means that without us, there wouldn't, you know, we're a big group of people making a big difference because we're all coming together, and we wouldn't have this without people that did those sit-ins and everybody that fought and, you know, hard and, you know, struggled and sacrificed.
And don't let the people that don't have that lived experience be the ones that control it. Everybody, every time. That's the big thing. The director of the Division of Developmental Disabilities, Kevin Savage, said this years ago, and we hold him to it every time, and he still says it, that the division isn't going to be making all these big changes and rules and all this stuff without asking people themselves who are affected by it directly for their opinion on it, which is the beautiful, beautiful thing, because I've been doing this a long time, and the public, the parents, and the people themselves, and anybody else, they just kind of found out, oh, we just did this. Oh, that happened. It's like, what do you mean that happened? So that's powerful, powerful stuff. Anybody else? How'd you guys? There's another question, but I just was wondering, like, how did you feel looking at all those people that you could relate to on screen? What'd you think, Marina, about seeing all those people that you could relate, those people on screen, people with disabilities doing stuff at protesting? What'd you think about that, Marina?
Yeah.
Thumbs up, yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else? What'd you think about that? It's kind of cool.
Alex M?
I mean, I want to point out that like if they didn't speak up or like sit in, like then their chances of getting like this law passed might have dropped dramatically. But it's good that like they like pressured the congressman to say like, you know, we don't want to wait. We want this now signed. And if you think we're just like, people who are not normal, then you're wrong because we deserve to have this.
Well, and like Judy Human pointed out, she sees this stuff happening and her tax dollars are being spent on things that she can't use. Because you guys all pay taxes. Even if it comes out of your social security or whatever, like anything you contribute, there's taxes. Hey, we all pay
Right.
taxes.
The other thing because I try to think of things in a bigger way is that all the right, like, I think what makes this, Deb is always saying Deanne cries because it's true, I do, I'm sorry.
I get
But
goosebumps.
I think for me, and I try, like I said, I try to think of things in a bigger way. If it weren't for those people that did the sit-in, we might not be where we are today.
Wouldn't it be, Kate?
So, and we wouldn't be. And so
Still be institutions.
and still be institutions. We still wouldn't have access to things. So without the people that came before us, we wouldn't be here. Hear me?
Well, I think first and foremost, we need to recognize that they were definitely trailblazers because they paved a way for a lot of disabilities. So that's our theme for class. And for me, it's just a reminder of the power of showing up and the power of numbers. And if you don't continuously show people and put things in people's faces, it becomes out of sight or out of mind. So one of the greatest things about that sit-in was the fact that they couldn't look away. Once you see something and your eyes are open, you can't close them again. So for me, that's the most powerful message of all of this.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's hard to say no to somebody when they're right in front of your face.
Yeah. I mean, like when they asked the people in Congress, did you even read it? And none of them had even read the regulations that they said, oh, we're going to sign them soon. You haven't even looked at them. And just what we're going to ask the next question, but there's something in that video that strikes me every time because this was like a lot of people have never heard of the 504 sit-ins. Like when we showed in class, people are like, oh my gosh. And the thing, when you look at that video, when they said that the group of people that flew to Washington, you noticed they had to go on U-Hauls. They put their wheelchairs on the back of U-Hauls because they didn't even have accessible transportation. So that was like everyday life like that people didn't have the things that even nowadays, it's like, of course there should be a ramp there. Back then, it wasn't required. Federal money didn't have to pay for it. It was okay. And this law changed that. So it's a big, powerful, the most powerful part. This is the beginning of when it was like, let's knock off this craziness. Does somebody else want to read the next question? Angie just read that one. Can we get Molly? You want to read the next one? Somebody want to read it? I'm just picking on people. Nathan, anybody? Yeah. Who wants to read it? Yes, Molly?
Yeah, I'll
okay.
read it.
Okay, here.
Let's talk about the sit-in question 2. Why do you think it was important for people with disabilities to be
the ones? I'm sorry, I put you on the spot. People should usually see the stuff the ones. We just answered this question basically, right? But why was it important for them to be the ones to speak up and talk to government?
Because it affects them the most.
Yeah, we just kind of said it, but like it doesn't hurt to say it again. Like, so who wants to say some more about that? I'm sorry, Dee. I'm like, Dee's going to facilitate. Then me will shut up. I'll mute myself.
So who does want to say more about that? I mean, we kind of already discussed it a little bit, but I'm sure some of you have other thoughts. Christine?
Sorry. I thought it was really powerful when one of the individuals that was working at the building was asking if he could get out to go to the bathroom, and they were all saying no because, like, we've had to learn how to control our bladders for all these years. Now you're going to have to experience that. So I think that was that really touched me and like was powerful in that moment.
Yeah, and it kind of makes you think, like when I was younger, my mother would say, hey, before we leave the house, do you want to go to the bathroom? And part of the reason why she did that, not just because I was a young kid, but because she knew it was going to be difficult for me to go into a bathroom. And I was born in the early 70s, so, you know.
And that's why, the question is, why was it important that it was people with disabilities that were there? Nobody else would have thought to say that as a response because nobody else has ever
Yeah.
had to hold their bladder like that, right? So in that moment, that was really powerful, I'm sure, to that official, whoever that was. I can't remember who it was, but yeah.
Yeah. Tammy, I saw your hand go up.
I think Michelle kind of covered that. I was just going to add to what Christine said, and just the people with disabilities should be the ones speaking because they're the experts in this area, where we're each experts in what we experience. And while many of us can sympathize, empathy is much more challenging if you haven't actually experienced that yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And you notice, like, people in that video, like, they had the Black Panthers and they had other people there to support them, but you notice who talked. So that's really, we all want allies. We absolutely do want allies, but I think it's powerful when it comes from the individual themselves. Is there any other, did I miss anybody? Because the screen is moving around, so.
Yeah, do you have something, Andy? You have any thoughts about it, Andy? It's okay if you don't. It's a lot. It's a lot to process.
It sucks that that had to happen.
Yeah.
Yes,
it does. That just sums it all up. It sucks that it had to happen.
Yeah.
I love that.
Alex M.
Yeah, I wanted to point out that while they were barricading themselves in like the state house and stuff, they were like having areas where they were eating, they were playing games. It was almost like they're base headquarters, base camp, where they talked about how are we gonna convince them to sign this faster? What strategies should we do, or what strategy should we talk about? And something like that.
They didn't. So just to be clear, they didn't barricade themselves in. They just went in there and sat. They didn't put barriers up. But you're right. But the government officials kind of created a barricade because they locked the doors so nobody else could come in. But they didn't do it. They just stayed there.
And I just want to put a plug that if you there's audiobooks and stuff, but Judy Heumann's book, I recommend to listen to it or read it because she talks about it. She talks about it in her book and what it was like for her. So it's really quite interesting, her life and hearing about the sit-in from her perspectives.
Have any of you ever met Judy Heumann?
Yeah.
We met her over Zoom, right? Did you meet her in person? Right. Yeah, we met. We went to some session she did. It was like, oh, it was so exciting. It was like a star. We're gonna be a star.
And Justin Dart is who you were thinking of, Deb.
No, I'm thinking of Justin, but Gunnar did
Gunnar, yeah.
For him, but Justin Dart. We met Justin Dart. Dee and I got to meet. He's another father. He's the father of the ADA, which we'll be talking about next week. But we met him in person. He wore these big cowboy hats.
And that's
we met him.
Oh yeah, I know.
Because it's 2:29, so we want to be mindful of time. So just before we go, I want you to think as you're leaving today's class about when we talked about voting last week, and we talked about how there are those who have gone before us to make a way for us, and especially for you guys when it comes to disability rights. Don't waste your vote. They did all that so that today you could vote and you could make a difference for this generation. So that's why it's so important to vote. So just a little plug for the voting thing.
Little shout out to Xavier too, because that's what he was saying.
Yes, that's exactly what Xavier was saying.
Don't listen to the politics and the polls and anything like that. It's like, oh, this is going to happen. Well, there was an election in, I don't know, 2004 or something. When was it? Bush Gore. There was an election.
2000.
2000.
And then again in 2004.
But in 2000, it came down to just a couple of votes, like a handful of votes. Of
537
the difference.
Yeah, every
You're
vote
our geek, Andy. Yes.
Yeah, that's great that you have that
So your
information.
voice counts.
Yeah,
There have been elections where just
unfortunately,
one
we
vote
have this
changed
weird
it.
thing where we're
Oh, we're going to get
winner
into
take
other more
all.
stuff. I know we are.
Winner take all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most of the
So-
states are
That's
winner
other
take
classes.
all.
We have classes about that in the Graduate Academy too, which sounds like Andy's going to help us teach.
Yeah. We're going to talk more about the Graduate
Yeah.
Academy in the coming weeks. But for now, enjoy this gorgeous, like pre-summer day. It's like 90 degrees
Yeah.
outside. If you love that, go
And you
for
guys,
it.
we're going to
wow.
put this stuff, these videos, all of this is going to go on the website. And the only thing
You
to
can
know
take
is
your
that
time. Go through it.
yeah, and the videos that are in it, we might just put those separate on the page because sometimes when you put a video up in your video on YouTube, even though legal, like we're all we're educational purposes and stuff, sometimes they're like, oh, you can't use that, so we're not going to show your video. So you're going to get to see them.
And be sure
It's
to send
powerful.
me like the date for the State House meeting.
Yep. All the information, be watching for emails, okay? I'm going to send out 2, one about the State House, one about graduation. So be looking for those. All right. And we'll see you next week.
That's a wrap. See you next week. Wednesday, May 27th, 1 to 2:30 p.m.
Produced by Advocates in Action, Rhode Island. Copyright 2026. Remember, nothing about us without us.